Hi, I'm Kieren from Boxtape and this is Boxtips, our first ever episode. Boxtips is a side series we're experimenting with. Videos where we share something interesting or cool we've learned about music, being in a band, maybe other stuff too. The theory is if we found it interesting or useful, someone else might too. So, please enjoy. In this first video I want to talk about how we record and mix electric guitar for our other videos. So we're going to do 3 tips for awesomeness: bleed, resonance and phase, because with any one of those not fixed, mixing is a whole lot harder. Tip number 1, bleed. So the first thing we have to contend with is bleed. In many of our videos we're doing a live performance with several mics. Because we're in a fairly small room, each mic picks up all of the instruments to some degree. Angles that work well for video might not work so well for audio recording. The electric guitar amp is directed right to the centre of the room, so the acoustic mic picks it up. That can make it quite difficult to mix. For example, if we want to pan the acoustic left, we'll get some electric in the left as well. We get around this by using reamping. We play the guitar as normal, comes out the amp in the room, but before it goes to the amp, we capture the raw signal using a DI into Pro Tools. Keep the amp turned quite low, so in the room the other mics don't pick it up, but then we've got that signal saved to play with later. So that's the boring bit. The fun bit comes with the reamping afterwards. Reamping is playing that raw signal back into your rig, into your amp. So you set up your mic or mics, all of your amp settings, and you play the raw signal back through the amp and you record those mics. And voila, with that you've got a main recording with the electric right down low in all the mics in the room, and you've got recorded mic signals from the electric guitar with only the electric guitar. Tip number 2, resonance. So this next tip really applies for any time you're recording a mic in a less than ideal room, for example a home studio. Alright, this makes a huge difference to mixing, but it can be tricky to get going with. So basically, based on the room you're in, certain frequencies will be resonant, meaning if your amp puts out something in that frequency, it will be multiplied up and make a ringing. The amp, guitar or pickup might also have resonances as a result of their design or settings, and there are other causes of resonance too, but they're all solved in roughly the same way. Take this recording for example. So if you can kind of tell something's wrong, you're bringing up the tracks and something's not quite right, you can find this using an EQ sweep. So you bring up a narrow boost, sweep it across the range. Then basically when it's accentuated, when it really rings, you've found it. The tip then is to find the resonances and notch them out. So narrow EQ, only as much as you need and as narrow as you can, because you're taking away tone. If you do too many of these corrections, it can make the tone sound quite thin and weak and lackluster, which is kind of one of the reasons it's a good idea to record in the best room you can. And really that applies whenever you've got a microphone in a room. Remember, with a microphone you are not just recording an instrument, you're recording the sound of that instrument in a room or in a space. So if the room isn't ideal, you might have some work to do. So just to rub it in, I'm going to accentuate the resonance, then we're going to take it out, and then we'll do before and after so you can see. So here we go. Without the correction. With the correction. Tip number 3, phase. Okay, so if you happen to have a few mics lying around, we've collected a few over the years doing demos and general banding. It can be cool to capture several sounds when you're reamping so that you can blend them and get different tones without having to resort to EQ and stuff. Problem is that the mics are different distances away from the speaker. That means that they will be out of phase. So when things are out of phase, you get comb filtering. So some frequencies are boosted and some are cut, and it can make things again sound boomy, resonant or weak. So here's an example of that. If we choose 2 distorted tracks, because that makes it a bit more obvious. So the way to fix this is to adjust the waveform so that they're in line, in sync, in phase. If we take a look at these, you can see there's a small delay, not too much, but it still has an effect. So what we can do is just drag waveforms and make them line up. You can actually adjust the microphones, of course, so that they're in sync. You can put headphones on and adjust it till it sounds good. But what we do is do it in the box. So we've got a plugin I use called Waves in Time, Waves in Phase, which works well enough, but I won't go into the details here. Effectively, you can adjust the delay and see the waveforms and line them up. So I'm going to toggle the plugins here and you can hear the difference before and after, quite noticeable. Much better. Okay, so if you've got all your recordings in phase, you can then blend them. So that was just 2 distorted channels, but you can do all sorts of things. Let's hear that quickly without the plugins. And then turn it back on again. Much better. So that's it, and covers our electric guitar recording process for our videos. Capture the amp nice and quiet in the room, reamp it later, find and take out any resonant peaks, correct for phase, and you're all set. Alright, so that wraps up the first ever episode of Boxtips. Really appreciate you watching. If you did enjoy it, please click the like button, take a look around the channel, subscribe if you like what you see. Thanks for watching and see you next time.